Shh. The podcast is starting. Welcome to the OT Download, from practice to podcast. This is where we unpack everything you didn't know you needed to know about occupational therapy. Whether you're an OT, an OTA, a student, or simply curious, this is your place to explore the real stories, challenges, and opportunities shaping our profession. Each episode will dive into fresh topics from ethics to AI in practice, to the dynamics between OTs and AHAs, the differences between community and medico-legal work, and even what it's like stepping into the courtroom. You'll hear honest conversations on mental health, well-being, boundaries, and early career experiences, alongside insights from lawyers, allied health professionals, and other experts. We'll bust common misconceptions and shine a light on the parts of OT that don't always get spoken about. So if you're ready for insights, stories, and a no-nonsense take on occupational therapy, this is your download. Let's get into it.
Welcome back to the OT Download. Today we're talking about something that's close to both of our hearts, which is home modifications. We're going to be diving into what it actually takes to create an accessible home that helps someone maintain their safety, independence, and function.
Excellent choice, Chelsea. So Chelsea and I have both been working in home modifications for a large portion of our careers, I would say. So we have both seen firsthand how home modifications can either enable someone's function or actually restrict it. So we're going to talk about a lot of the clinical reasoning behind decisions that we've made in our careers or things that we've seen along the way, along with common misconceptions that you might come across in the home mod space. So let's get down to function.
Hey.
So Chelsea, what made you get into home modifications?
I've been doing home mods most of my OT career. I originally started with just minor mods as a early career therapist, and then as time's progressed and I've transitioned from hospital to community practice, I've expanded into doing more complex modifications. But I think what got me into it was I really like the technical side.
We love a technical side.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Robust Australian standards.
Yeah.
You've got markers for what you're aiming for, but we all know that just meeting the Australian standards is not all it's cracked up to be, right?
Exactly. It's so much based on what the person, like what it is that they're going
wanting
through,
to achieve,
what it is they're wanting to do, and then I guess how their home's set up initially in terms of then what we can do. I think what's kept me in it for so long though is seeing the instant
outcomes.
Change that someone can experience with
I find
the
that
right home mod.
That's the best thing about home mods is that, I mean, OT generally is always going to be aiming at increasing someone's function and independence, but some services, obviously that happens over a period of time, and seeing those small milestones can mean the world to therapists working in that space. But I agree. I think home mods for me, the home mod is completed, the building and construction side is done, and that person has an immediate change to their function, and that provides a lot of job satisfaction, I find.
What got you into home mods?
Oh, going back in my day. I think my first taste of home mods was when I was a new grad and I was working in a private practice in the community, and we got a contract to make a fully accessible home for someone who had had a significant brain injury and who was in a full tilt and space wheelchair. And they were building a new build. So it was all about working off the plans rather than working in an actual construction, kind of like an actual house. And then over then I did a lot of DVA, so lots of minor mods like you, probably not for discharge planning though, but in people's houses. And then when the NDIS rolled out, that's when it really kicked off for me. So that's when I started doing a lot of the complex home modifications with the NDIS, like right from the rollout. So being based up in Townsville, we had the NDIS 12 months before Brisbane did. So it was like one of those trial zones. So it was very much what are we doing? Deer in headlights kind of moment, because there wasn't a lot to go off. So it was about finding our feet in a funding scheme that was so brand new to literally everybody. So we're all in the same boat. But that provided probably the right kind of challenge for me in my career at that time. So yeah, it took off from there. So I became pure home mods caseload for a solid 7 years.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep.
And both of us have then done further education to be able to do complex home mods. You've done access consulting.
I did a diploma of access consulting in 2019. And obviously with a diploma of access consulting, it's taking that one step further, right? So it's obviously looking at commercial spaces and looking at non-residential spaces out in the community that are non-accessible for the general public. And then we find out that, you know, disabilities, it's not just about physical access to a building. It's looking at people with vision impairments, people with cognitive impairments, people with hearing impairments. And so you're looking at all of those aspects outside of just ramps and rails. And we did the training the training for the CHM assessor.
Yes.
Yes.
Because with NDIS you have to have some further quals.
Yeah, further quals.
To be able to do complex mods. So yeah.
What do you think generally people think of when they think of accessibility in a house?
I think the knee-jerk thought for most people would just be grab rails. Maybe the odd ramp, but the very superficial adjustments that you see in a lot of houses.
Or in public spaces.
Spaces.
You go into the bathrooms out in public and you'll see some ramp or some toilet roll holder that's been installed really low because it needs to meet the Australian standards.
Yeah.
So as an OT, in contrast, what do you think of when you think about accessibility?
I mean, the standards play a big role, but I think for OTs, the crux of it is what is it that this person is trying to do in their space and how can we make it so that they can do it?
Yeah, so we take away the complexity.
Yeah.
It comes down to
function first.
Function first.
Yeah.
I like that.
I think when you are working in someone's home in their space, it's a matter of weighing up the standards, the person themselves, their own anthropometrics, the activities that they're trying to do, their equipment that they're using, but then also it's their home, it's their space. What is it that they're wanting from that space? Because even that in itself has a massive impact. Yeah.
And for me, there's definitely been times in my career where the Australian standards aren't actually possible. A lot of the bathrooms are smaller, there's quirkier spaces, there's things that aren't quite square, and you have to be able to think, well, is what I want to create going to work in the space that I have available? Another thing that comes into that is we have to be within our scope of practice, right?
For sure.
So we talk about the relationship between the client at the forefront, the OT as the person who comes in with the expertise in function, and then of course the builder or construction professional who comes in as the expertise in the
building itself.
In the building itself. So you can't have one without the other. And I know we've talked before around experiences where builders have gone in and installed a rail because they're just trying to help, which is great, but they don't have that understanding of someone's function, and so the rail kind of becomes obsolete, right?
Yes.
Share some stories with me, please.
It's something you see quite often, actually. It's always well-intentioned, people trying to do their best, but I feel like when you don't have all three parties involved, there's so much room for error. Plenty of times I've gone in to see rails which, I mean, installed into studs, great, but in a position that's completely not helpful for someone, to the point where it then just doesn't get used.
Absolutely.
Yeah, or ramps way too steep. Stuff like that all the time.
1 in 5 ramp.
Yeah. And, with an OT going in, actually this person's going to be trying to wheel up this ramp. That's going to be way too steep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, I've definitely prescribed, not a 1 in 5, but I've definitely prescribed ramps that haven't technically met the 1 in 14 gradient over that certain height. Because again, you've got space that you have to comply with, and that's all that you can do. However, if that person's going to be functional with that slight adjustment, then that's okay. And I think that's what we've got to, realize is ultimately, if function's going to be, if adequate function is going to be the outcome, then it's okay to bend those rules.
Yeah.
And I've also seen situations where OTs have gone in without a builder at the site visit, and you do feel like a deer in headlights if you're not accustomed to seeing these situations all the time and talking about modifications and knowing what's possible structurally in a house.
Absolutely.
You're going to be thrown to the deep end.
Yeah.
And then you have all sorts of problems with a builder coming in saying, well, you can't actually do that because of A, B, and C. So it goes both ways. It's not just a builder going out and installing a rail that's not functionally going to work, but there's also situations where OTs are just trying to help the person, but they don't have that that in-depth knowledge of the structural side of things to be able to make those decisions without the builder supporting them.
Yeah, totally. I feel like so many of my site visits are me going, right, this is my ideas. Is this possible? And then them letting me know if structurally it is doable.
Yep, 100%. And clients, it's the same for everyone, but you don't know what you don't know. So, you have a client that has this idea in their head about what they need and what they want it to look like. And sometimes there's other things that are going to be just as functional, but they're not going to be as invasive.
Yeah.
So you don't have to do a full knockout of a bathroom or a kitchen to make something fully functional. And then when you start to have these conversations with people, it opens up this whole new set of, ideas about what they can do. And they're like, oh, no, I like that a lot better. Or I think that's going to work a lot more for me.
So let's take a step back and look at the big picture process for home mods, say in the NDIS space. The process from start to finish and the clinical reasoning that's involved in that.
Yep.
Starting with referral, what sort of information would you like to see on a referral?
Something that comes through in a referral isn't necessarily indicative of what you're going to see when you go out to someone's house. However, I guess the nature of their diagnosis and what that means. So if they've got MS, what stage of MS they're at. If they've got a spinal cord condition, what level is it at? Because you obviously want to have that understanding of what their function is before you're going to go out, so you can start to kind of tailor where the conversation's going to go.
And is it progressive?
Absolutely, which is a huge thing, I guess, when it comes to NGOs, because we know ultimately they only really fund an area of the house once. So we want to take that in mind. So diagnosis and prognosis. I guess we want some social information about if they live alone, what their supports are, who their family is, do they have informal supports, and then I guess a little bit about the house, like is it high set, low set, and then the area of obviously what they want to focus on for the mod. Is it a bathroom modification? Is it access into the house? Is it a kitchen modification? Is it a high set home and they want access to upstairs? All of those kinds of things kind of say, okay, if it's an access modifications for a high set house, someone's going to want a lift or a stair climber, which is, as you know, something with a track up the stairs. If it's a bathroom modification and we're looking at their condition and it's progressive, maybe they've got a shower over bath, maybe they've got a shower recess that they can't get into, or maybe it's a younger person who's growing up and at the moment mum or dad are lifting them in or whatnot. So you want to think about all of those things, because at that point in time you don't actually know what the house looks like or what's even possible. The other thing I really like to know is the equipment that they use. Do they have a wheelchair? Do they have just a walker? Are they ambulant? Is there a physio involved or anything like that? Is this, someone who wants to maintain their current function despite a slow progression of diagnosis? Or is it someone who's actually stable and stationary in what their function is at the moment? So I guess, is there anything else that you would think of that you would want at the referral
No,
end?
I feel like that pretty much covers it, because then everything from there you'd be able to get an initial assessment. So that's when you would then be able to look at the home.
So I guess ultimately you want their goal. What's their goal? I want to get into the shower by myself and I want to be able to do my whole personal routine. Okay, great.
It's helpful to know to go in when you then go into the initial to then frame the assessment.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
In saying that, I find that if I'm going in to do an initial assessment, I'm not just going to look at the bathroom.
Yeah.
We are holistic.
Exactly.
Are there other modifications that they haven't thought about that would increase their safety that we can also put in the same application?
Yeah.
So there's definitely been a lot of times like that where I've done bathroom, ramps and rails, access, all of that's kind of gone into the same application. Let's move on to the initial assessment. How do you go about your initial assessment given the information that we have at time of referral?
Home mods initial assessments differ slightly from a standard, but I think the basis of them are very much like an OT initial assessment, regardless of referral, is fairly universal. Like regardless of what it is someone's needing assessed with the home, you're still going to go in, assess the person, assess their occupations, and assess their environment. So the basic structure of an OT initial assessment stays the same. You're not just rocking up and just looking at the bathroom. You've still got to do, like you said, the whole holistic assessment. But then home mod specific, having the heads up through the referral then means that, you can go to the specific areas of the home, take photos, take measurements, get thoughts and ideas from the client, brainstorm ideas yourself. And then also from the client perspective, it allows you to then know what measurements you need to take of the person, of their equipment, for circulation space, all that sort of stuff. So the foundation of the assessment in the holistic approach stays the same. It's just obtaining that little bit more extra information specific to the mod.
Yeah, and I guess there's there's two different ways you can go about this, right?
Mm.
I go about it probably a little bit differently to most because I've been doing home mods for a fair whack of time. So I do a longer assessment and I'll do it all at once. I won't get the builder in from the get-go. Do my functional assessment, get the ideas about what we want to achieve. And then for the second half of the assessment, I get the builder to come along. And usually it's a builder that I've worked with time and time again. They understand the constraints of funding. They understand my process and what I need to be able to do. And then they offer their very solid advice, which I love, to come in and then discuss things from that structural perspective with the client. So it's still the same thing, but just in a shorter time frame.
Whereas I'm the opposite to you. I like to have it as 2 separate visits so I can reflect and simmer on it in between.
We love a simmer.
Yeah.
And I guess at the end of your initial assessment, sometimes you are not going to have the solution.
No.
Well, I'd say more often than not, you might not have the solution.
Ideas of a solution. But nothing set in stone.
Let's say we're modifying a bathroom. I've got all the measurements. The builders told me what is and isn't possible. I understand what the client needs. The client knows what they need. They're happy with the possible solutions that I'm going to come up with. And the ultimate solution comes out is when you start drawing it.
Absolutely.
So we use a program called OT Draw. Yeah. I know there's lots of different drawing programs out there, but basically you're drawing it from a bird's eye view and you're putting everything in to scale.
Yes.
So that it fits, you know what their equipment, like the size of their equipment, you know the size of the shower, the toilet, all of that kind of thing. So I'll draw out the existing floor plan of the bathroom and then I will copy it and then I'll take everything out and start putting in and redesigning, knowing where plumbing is in the wall, knowing where the electricity is, where the power points are and all of that kind of thing. And that's when you start to have in the back of your mind the certain aspects of the Australian standards. So, you know, it's things like, if this house is on a concrete slab and I need to move a toilet, there's a lot more work involved than if it's a high-set house and I need to move a toilet, because the builder can access underneath the house and, you know, it's a timber floor and it's usually a lot easier to relocate plumbing. Whereas a concrete slab, they're jackhammering, you know, so it's a lot more work. What comes with more work? Cha-ching.
More money.
More money. So it's going to be a more expensive option.
Yeah.
So you start to, in the back of your mind, start to tease out, okay, yep, this is ultimately what we need functionally. How much is it going to cost? And I know, you know, with the NDIS, that's probably
absolutely
holds a lot of weight.
So
right?
while you're like playing with the floor plan of this new bathroom design, in your head you've got the Australian standards circulating, you've got the NDIS reasonable and necessary, you've got all this sort of stuff going on.
Yep. 100%.
Feeding into not just how the bathroom's going to function, but then also are we going to get it funded?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So sometimes there'll be a lovely big bathroom and you'll be like, oh, there's like 4 different possible things I can do in here that's going to work. It just depends on what the client feels is going to suit them. They might be reasonable around the same cost, which is great because then they've got choice and control, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But then sometimes in a smaller bathroom or with something a little bit more awkward in shape,
it can be quite limiting.
There might be only one way you can get about it, and that's even like pushing the boundaries a little bit.
I think a common mistake I see happen too is accounting for things like tilt. When people are using equipment,
tilt in space,
wheelchairs, commodes, a lot of people are using equipment that tilts, and as soon as you tilt someone in the chair, all of a sudden the footprint so much bigger. You
know, I always explain it to clients using my hands. So recline is a backrest like this, tilt goes like this, so you can see that the whole footprint of the leg rest and the backrest take up way more length than when it's in an upright position. So then you have to actually have the measurements in full tilt to know how it's going to fit, and not just fit like straight in, straight out, but you got to be able to turn it around, to move it around and get it out.
Where's the support person standing?
Yep.
You need a room for that person too.
Is it a 1 support or 2 support shower? You know, so if someone's needs are really high, they might have 2 people in the bathroom with them. So
then all of a sudden you're trying to find space for equipment, a client, and 2 people.
Yep.
In what is often small bathrooms.
There's so much to think about. And I guess when it's not going to work in the existing footprint, what else can we do to make this work? And usually if it's a separate toilet to a bathroom, you're knocking out a wall
Yep.
to make the circulation space bigger.
A big wet area.
Yep, to make a big wet area. And sometimes, you know, I've had people say, oh, if we need to knock out that bedroom next to the bathroom, do it. So, I mean, some clients, they recognize that, you know, to get their goal, there's going to have to be compromises sometimes. And you don't want to have to get to that, but sometimes you really don't have a choice.
I think another common thing that I see come up is because most of our drawings are bird's eye view down, and it's you know often playing with the floor plan from top down. I guess looking at the vertical environment as well. The elevations. So I mean, heights of switches, heights of vanities, heights of rails.
So where the windows are, which is a big thing, because if you've got again, Australian standards. If you've got a window within a shower area that is a certain distance from the ground and you're creating a flat accessible bathroom, that glass now has to be changed. So it's safe that if someone has a fall next to the window, the glass isn't going to break. So it's a tempered glass that's put in. So it's knowing all those nuances of like, yeah, we need to measure like literally everything.
Yeah. And then I guess that's where then your measurements of the person go just beyond the equipment size and the carers. It's also how far can they reach and what height are they going to be sitting at? Can they clear the toilet bowl in their commode?
Where do we put their little shower niche so they can reach their toiletries? How high does that actually need to be for their reach range? Okay, so now that we have drawn our diagrams, we've got the client on side. They're like, yep, that's great. Love that. Can't wait to see it in practice. What do we do next?
I guess at that point is then when we create the formal scope of works. So that would be putting all of our diagrams into a report with a really clear breakdown of all of the changes that we're recommending. And then that gets sent to the client for them to review the diagrams, review the recommended works and sign off, make sure that they're happy. If they are, the builder then uses our scope to help finalise their quote.
And I know some builders actually prefer to do the scope up themselves, but I prefer to do that as the OT.
Same.
Because you can then explain it to the client in a way that they are going to understand it. And they're going to be able to understand how their functions going, you know, how they're going to be independent in the space that you're creating for them. So I prefer to do that myself because I know there's extra things on a scope that we would put in as OTs that builders wouldn't. And I guess the language we use is a little bit more
user friendly. Has there ever been a time where you've done the site visit with the builder, you've written your scope of works, and then when you present it to the client, they haven't been happy with the solution?
Quite a few. You know, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. You're not going to be like, this is a perfect process every time you prescribe something, because there are going to be times when, you know, at the end of the visit, everyone is on the same page. And then when you present it in the scope of works, they're like, well, hang on, I thought this was going to be funded, or I thought it was going to look like this. And so that then opens up the floor to have that discussion around the reasonable and necessary criteria, because it's pretty restrictive, you know, in some contexts of what you know will be funded or is likely to be funded and what is likely to be not funded. And a lot of what I have known to be funded or not be funded has come from years of experience. And as we know, things that we used to get approved maybe 7 years ago is probably a lot harder these days with the NDIS. And it seems like they're tightening their belt. You know, you're not getting as much funding for different things. So there's definitely been times when I've presented a scope and they're like, well, hang on a second. So we talk about it. We talk about the why, which is obviously a big factor. You know, things like standard household items. And when I say that, our toilet roll holders, our towel rails, our standard mirrors, so things that are not disability specific are technically not funded by the NDIS.
So then you go out to get the scope of work signed, everyone's on the same page, clients signed off on it, builder's given you their quote. What happens next?
We write our report. So I will never start writing a report on the NDIS template or whatever until the scope is signed. Because if the person hasn't agreed to it, and they have a right to not agree to it, that is so fine. I'm not going to waste their funding by writing a report and taking funding away from them when that's not what they've agreed to. So we write our report and we start to delve into our deep clinical reasoning. And through that, you're obviously exploring other options that you've considered that you have deemed to be not reasonable or necessary.
Yes.
And some of those options are, so we'll come back to our bathroom, which is our running case study throughout. If you're putting you're taking out a shower of bath, you're taking out the wall between the shower and the toilet, you're making this beautiful big space for someone to come in with a commode. Can't wait. Sounds great. But what are the other cheaper options that you've considered that might be more value for money? And then it becomes this conversation between function and money. Yeah. So cheaper options would be
bath transfer bench.
Yep.
Or
Equipment.
AT.
Yep. So any kind of equipment, grab rails, a ramp to get into a shower recess. Yeah. So any kind of minor modification. So all of those cheaper things. So it's either equipment or minor mods, right?
Task modification. Can they do it differently?
Capacity building. Yeah. All of those kinds of things, which would technically be cheaper. Yeah. But when you think about their diagnosis and their prognosis and their current function and their safety and the other people involved in the goal that they're wanting to achieve, aka showering, those things are ruled out. Yeah. Because even though it's cheaper, it's not more functional.
And I guess from an OT point of view, when we are applying for something like home mods, we have to have the evidence that says this is why we can't do these things. So there have been times where people are wanting home mods, and I've had to have the conversation with them to say, like, hey, we kind of have to try some of these other things first to then bring the evidence that either it worked great or it didn't work, and this is why we're asking for complex mods.
Have you taken equipment out to trial it?
Oh, 100%.
As part of those?
Yeah, even if it's just photos for NDIA, even if I know it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you've just got to prove it.
Yeah, and I guess taking a step back even from it as the OT, like you've got these people who work for the NDIA that are reading these applications. They've never met this person. No. They've never been to the house. Yeah. They are banking on your report and what you put forward to say yes or no. Yeah. And so you've got to put your best foot forward. And through that, photos are a great way to demonstrate why something would work or why something wouldn't work. Yeah. Agree. Have you ever looked at other solutions outside of like more expensive options to say, well, you do it the other way? Like, these are the cheaper options that I've considered and they're not going to work. These are the more expensive options which are not considered value for money because we've found the happy medium. Do you ever do that? Like the example
you gave earlier of home access for a high set, if you're comparing, for example, a stair lift versus a vertical lift, for someone who can operate a stair lift fine,
can do a safe transfer, sit to stand transfer.
Do you know what I mean? You would then consider, when presenting it to the NDIA, that the stair lift is going to work well for this person
long term. The
contrary option would be the vertical lift, and this is why we haven't gone for that, because it's not value for money,
and they're like 60k plus, probably more these days,
and a lot more intrusive to the home space,
probably the most expensive access modification. So the cheaper options would be a stair lift, or I've even had NGOs come back and said, what if they move downstairs and live downstairs and they don't access upstairs? So then the other part that we haven't talked about is including in a scope of works a floor plan of the actual house.
The whole house.
The whole house. Yeah. Doesn't have to be to scale. You can pull off realestate.com, that kind of thing. So including a floor plan in your scope is saying to the NGOs, hey, I've considered all of this and I've looked at the whole environment and it's not going to work. And this is why.
Hey, there's not actually a bathroom downstairs. So that's why.
There might be a utility room, not a bedroom. We'll talk about that in a second. There's no bathroom. The only bathroom's upstairs. The living area is downstairs, you know, those kinds of things. So you're looking at features of the house that are on different levels. So why do they need to access upstairs? Well, because they need to get to the bathroom. They need to get to the kitchen. They need to be able to access the utilities of the house outside of just getting inside, you know. The reason I said utility room before, again, Australian standards, I feel like I'm saying that a lot today, is with a livable house, the ceiling to floor height has to be
2100. No, 2400. 24.
2.4 meters. Bathroom and kitchen.
Bathroom's 21.
Is 2100. Legal living height is 2.4 in legal. And so that's in your living area, in your bedroom. Yeah. Bathroom and kitchen.
Bathroom's 21.
That was a trick question, Chelsea. You're actually right.
We were talking about bathrooms.
Bathroom is 2100. So you've got to make sure the ceiling height to modify a bathroom ultimately the ceiling height has to be 2100 or
At
2.1 meters
Yeah.
at a minimum. So sometimes downstairs the bathroom height's 2 meters.
Especially in the Queenslander houses.
Yeah, for sure. And then you've got legal requirements.
Mm.
And so NDIS usually doesn't touch a bathroom that
Yeah.
has a non-legal living height.
Mm.
And therefore you have to then go about the other options. So if you have a house, bathroom downstairs, bathroom upstairs, legal living height is not quite there downstairs. That means you have to modify the bathroom upstairs. Therefore, you have to provide an access solution to get upstairs in the first place. So already you're adding to this scope to create an accessible environment.
Yeah. One of the other arguments I've seen sort of swirling around is relocation.
Relocation to
Why
a
not
more
move?
accessible house.
Yeah.
Well, we all know how that's going in Brisbane at the moment.
Yeah.
I think it's to break into the housing market, it's more expensive than Sydney now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean,
not always a feasible option.
No.
Yeah.
And there's people who are, living in a home that they've lived in for their entire life who don't want to move house.
Absolutely. Availability on the market, What about rental properties?
Oh, gosh.
Tell me about your experience with someone who needs a modification who lives in a rental property.
Yeah. I feel like I navigate this quite often. Because they don't own the home, you need to get approval from the landlord. And that's where a lot of the challenge lies in my experience is there's plenty of landlords who are more than happy to make customizations and support the people who are living in their home, especially if they've been a long-term tenant. There have also been a number of experiences where I've worked with landlords who are very reluctant to make any changes to their home for the tenant. Yeah, for the tenant. And I guess that's probably stemming from their own concerns around value of the house,
quality.
Resale. Yeah, workmanship, that sort of stuff. So I guess there are laws around modifying a home to protect people who do need modifications.
Especially when it's permanent modifications that can't be rectified or reversed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot of the pushback I am getting from landlords more often than not is that they want the house rectified back to what it was. And that's hard. It's not always...
You can't get that funded.
You can't get it funded, and it's not always possible to get it back to how it was.
Yep.
So...
It's a challenge, hey?
It is.
And then it kind of puts you as the OT and with the client, between a rock and a hard place because you're trying to make sure this person is safe in their own house, but you're so restricted in that you can only do modifications that are reversible. You can only use equipment, which might not be the ultimate safest option, but it's the only option sometimes. Can you make it work though? Is there other things that you can put in place to make sure it's going to be reasonably successful? So we've touched on the application process. So now it's been submitted to the NDIS with the signed report, the signed scope of works. Everyone's happy. We're on the same page. And now we're all crossing our fingers and toes that this application is going to get approved. What happens when you get the news that it has been approved?
The first thing I do is call the client and we celebrate the win. Because, getting home mods approved through NDIS can be challenging. So touch base with the client, talk about next steps from there. So typically we'd be notifying the builder next. This is obviously once we've got confirmation that the right funds have been added to the plan. Notify the builder and work commences.
Very exciting.
Yeah. Obviously throughout our application process we've considered some things as well about is the client able to continue living at the home when
the mods are being undertaken?
When the work's being done. If not, then that forms part of our application for potentially mid-term accommodation or short-term accommodation or something for them to be
or
elsewhere.
An accessible bathroom. I've had them funded so the accessible bathrooms put on site.
Trailer,
yep.
I've had that too.
And then I've had people move out where that's not a feasible option.
Yeah.
Or in regional and remote areas, if you're doing a modification, there might not be a bathroom available for them to hire.
Yep. So typically all of that is decided prior. So everything then gets put into place, works are commenced, and the builder gives us a timeline.
Mhm.
We're obviously in the loop throughout the process, but then typically once the mods are nearing completion, we would then be going out with the builder or the project manager to review everything and make sure all's gone to scope.
Yes, make sure it meets the functional goals that it was set to meet.
Yeah. And I usually, when I am doing that, I'd be going out with my scope of works with the builder quote and going through everything and checking it off.
Post-construction review.
A post-construction review,
love.
exactly.
Yep. I think that comes back around again to that client builder OT relationship and the importance of that, because I've also had a long time ago a builder change the scope and not adhere to anything. Well, no, for the most part it met the scope, but then there was a couple of things that they didn't actually, let me know in the process. And so when I went out and did my post-construction review, I was like, oh, hold the phone. Like, where did that come from? And the client's like, oh, the builder said it would be better, So again, that communication is so paramount to ensure that everything remains above board, because if something comes up later and you have to say to the NDIS, actually, this hasn't worked, they're like, but why? This modification was foreseen to meet the long-term needs of this person.
Yeah.
So it can cause, I guess, long-term issues down the road, depending on diagnosis, prognosis, and progression of condition and all that kind of thing. So
yeah, and I guess I've seen like that sort of instance too, where clients are wanting to make changes, but I've seen it happen where it's been for the better. So I had a client who wanted to self-fund this really fancy barn style door, and it looked beautiful in the bathroom. It made no functional impact whatsoever. Yep. But they loved it. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Took away that clinical aspect of what a mod is, I guess, typically seen to look like.
So I guess what do you do then when NDIA potentially declines a home mods application? I mean, we've all been there. It's NDIA.
We've all been there. It's a shared experience, isn't it? So delegates or planners used to be contactable. So we used to have these amazing conversations. Gosh, I've had some amazing conversations with planners in the past who were in charge of approving the modifications in their region, whether it be Townsville, Mackay. Having the planner have those discussions was amazing. But then if it was declined, you then got advice from the technical advisory team, and you got an opportunity to actually respond to that advice and submit a supplementary report or scope or adjust things to meet their requirements after talking with the client. So sometimes they'll say, it didn't meet the criteria for this, this, and this. Can you give us this, this, and this to actually address that? Yeah. And so then I would go back to the client and say, this is what we need. This is what we need to change. Are you happy with that? Let's resubmit it. Yeah. And then it gets approved. I feel like that's kind of doesn't happen anymore either. It's almost like, here's the decline, you can go to the tribunal.
Yeah, sometimes I don't know what's happening with the process, but sometimes you do miss the opportunity to go back and ask for a review of the decision, but then it's so inconsistent. Sometimes you do. Yeah. And then just recently I had some feedback from a decline that I had, where they provided some awesome feedback, and they were actually like, hey, like, if you wanted to, go for a bit more of an expensive mod, we're happy to consider it. Yeah. So that was one of those instances where I'd considered other options and said, look, for value for money, this will meet the basics of what we need. And they'd actually come back to me and said, well, we're open to considering more.
Isn't it amazing when that happens? Because I've had that too, where they're like, oh, well, why don't we just do the whole thing instead of just the bare minimum, I guess.
So that's rare, but
But I guess the moral of the story is that there's no method to the madness, it feels. Yeah. And sometimes you are reeling because you're like, how do they not see that? How do they not see that this is going to work? And I guess on the back end, there's lots of funding constraints and things from the NDIA that are impacting our ability to do our jobs, clients' abilities to get things approved that would have once been approved. Yeah. So I guess there's multiple different facets to if something gets declined, what your options are. But ultimately, it comes back to that AAT, the tribunal, Administrative Appeals Tribunal, where you would resubmit, and then they go through like a legal process essentially. So that taps into my medico-legal background when we get into that sort of side of things. But it can be really challenging, and then you're supporting a client who's just fed up, exhausted with the process, and they're exhausted, and it can be really exhausting to kind of go through that from an empathetic perspective as well as a therapist, right? So yeah, I guess it's I feel like it is getting harder and harder, and I know a lot of OTs would you know, agree with us on that. But all you can do is have the confidence, the skills, and have the right people around you to put the best application you can forward.
Supervision, always supervision.
Yes, we love some clinical. Let's do our rapid fire myth busting.
Go.
If a builder says it's compliant, it must be accessible.
Not always true. I mean, compliance to standards is universal design. It's designed to suit as many people as possible. Doesn't necessarily mean it works best for your specific client.
I like it. So partly true?
Mostly true.
Mostly true.
Yeah. Next myth. A grab rail will fix the problem.
Fiction. Well, it depends on the context. But, we have both seen some grab rails be installed completely incorrectly.
Terribly.
Which do not create any kind of functional outcome. So I guess a grab rail doesn't necessarily solve poor layout of a bathroom or any area.
Helpful in some cases.
Photo I saw this morning, Chelsea. There's a toilet with an angle and a horizontal rail. Next one for you. If a client can manage, they don't need mods.
It's not about managing. It's like so much bigger picture. Are they safe in doing so? Is it, I mean, considering things like pain and fatigue, is it efficient for them to be doing it?
How many falls have they had?
Well, yeah, just because they're doing it doesn't mean they're doing it well or they're doing it safely. Home mods is the easy side of OT.
I'd say that's a fiction because there's so much you need to know to do it well. Like anyone can do home mods, but whether you create a successful outcome or not depends on the knowledge that you have, the skills that you've built, and the experiences that you've gained.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely wouldn't say it's the easy side of OT. I think some aspects of minor mods are able to be done by many OTs. Yeah. As soon as you start stepping into complex, then it's very specialized. It's quite niche.
I have one more myth buster for you. Why can I not just buy my equipment from Kmart or Aldi? It's cheaper. It's easier.
It's cheaper for a reason. Yeah, no, I would be going through a reputable supplier for something that complies with all the manufacturing requirements.
Because I've seen grab rails for sale. Like off-the-shelf grab rails and things like that.
Suction grab rails. Just don't do it. Consult your OT.
Yep, consult your OT. I like that.
Yeah.
So thanks for tuning in to the OT Download. I've really enjoyed this Chels. This has gone back to our roots of complex home modifications. So if this resonated with you, please feel free to share with a colleague. If you're a student OT and you're interested in learning more, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're always happy to have a chat. And we'll see you in the next episode. The OT Download releases new episodes every month, and next month's episode is a big one. In our next episode, we are stepping inside the courtroom to explore how occupational therapy evidence can directly shape legal outcomes. Mia and I will be talking to MLEA's founding director, Vanessa Aitken, about her experience in courtroom processes, expert testimony, and report preparation, and also the practical realities of delivering evidence that stands up under scrutiny. If you work in OT and you are curious about the medico-legal space, this episode is for you. Make sure you're following us on Spotify and Instagram so you're the first one to know when it drops.